governing board to order. It seems we're missing one board member. We've tried to reach out, but we haven't been able to contact her, so we're going to move ahead. Our first item of business, thank you all for being here. First of all, we appreciate your involvement in our process. First order of business is our Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first action item is approval of the agenda. Are there any questions about the agenda for tonight from the board? If there's not, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I make the motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And the motion passes. Next item is approval of the minutes. Are there any questions about the minutes from the last regular meeting on July 11th? Any changes or additions? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the regular study and voting session of July 11th, 2023 as presented?
So, go ahead. Give it to Linda.
Ms. Khan has moved that we approve the minutes. Or is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And that motion passes. Thank you. Our next item is a presentation from PUSD Outdoor Learning, an update. Ellen Basher.
Want to introduce Ellen or just use this to click on those? All right, how do I go backwards?
Over here.
Oh, perfect.
Ellen, I'm going to introduce you a little bit.
Please do.
Then we'll jump right in. I think many of you have met Ellen Basher. She runs our outdoor learning center at the Community Nature Center across from Granite Mountain School. And this has been a wonderful partnership with the City of Prescott that we've been able to bring these outdoor programs to our students. And we asked her to come today and present about the activities that she does for our students and really talk about how it supports learning for our students and academic standards. So Ellen, who has come prepared to chat with you for a few minutes.
Hello, everybody. It's so great to be here with you all, even though we're indoors and not out on trails together. I'm really excited to talk to you. Just a brief overview of a little bit of what we do. And so I am, give myself a quick second there. This is me. I am our outdoor learning coordinator. My position in all of my work is not only co-funded by our city and our district, but also by so many amazing grants and donors in our community that make this work possible, to have all of these opportunities for our public school students to meet their standards and engage with their work and learning in new contexts around our community. And so I'm just really excited to give you a little sneak preview because I got a short time here, but what we do at the Community Nature Center is a part of the larger PUSD Outdoors initiative, and that does include our Farm to School program, our Habitat Gardens, and our Community Nature Center and Park Ranger programming. And so all of that together is ways that we connect and provide services that support the learning goals of our public school teachers or their staff as well. So basically, what we're trying to do is this is not a goal to just go outside, which I do like to do, and we do have initiatives for that. But at the school, we really focus on the way in which outdoors and hands-on learning enhances academic engagement and performance. There's a ton of research that supports this. I'll just give you a little bit of an overview, but across the nation and around the world, there's been a lot of research that's gone into outdoor learning and its relationship to standardized test scores, its relationship to general assessments in the classroom, and its relationship to achievement engagement of academic goals for students. So I'm just really excited. We now have some research that backs a lot of what all of us know, which is that using our hands and our minds at the same time is the best way to engage with our content. So if you want to talk about research more with me that supports this, I'd like you all to know I'm very nerdy, and I would love to do that. I also handed a copy of our annual report just to our board members up here if you have questions. This shows the overall report on the Partnership for Outdoor Learning, so it includes things for PUSD Outdoors, but also the broader work that we do in the community, serving caregivers and families in the community as well, in those spaces in and out of school. But today I really want to focus in on what we're doing here with the district. And I have some great quotes that I hope you get a little chance to read, because our teachers and our students are always the best voices for their learning and their needs. And the surprising thing is no, I didn't tell any fourth graders to say that. We asked them, what do you think the decision makers at your school and in your community should know about outdoor learning? And they've told us quite a few things. So just to give you an overview of what that usually looks like at the district, we kind of have a typical process. We have taken some time, because we're a little bit nerdy too, to actually go through every single grade level state standards for every single discipline and identify every single standard that can be effectively taught outdoors. So no, this is not every single state standard, because there are some that are really wonderful in the classroom with the supports and the technology and resources there. This is to highlight the standards that can be taught outdoors effectively. So this is just the standards for one grade level. We have ELA standards, we have social studies standards, and that goes all the way down from science to physical ed, art, theater, and more. So what we do is we let teachers at that grade level know about the standards that are available to them. Then the teachers reach out to us, knowing their own dates, knowing their learning needs, knowing specifically sometimes when there's a topic in their classroom that their students need a little extra engagement and time to focus on. I'll show you an example of that later, about how when a teacher reached out and said, we've got the test coming up and I need some more help with graphs. I want to get them into graphs. And anyone who has worked with a kid knows that getting into graphs is not the easiest thing in the world. And teachers are one of those magical people who can do it. And we thought we would help with making graphing a fun outdoor activity. So they reach out, they tell us a standard or topic or thing they're going to focus on. We come up with lessons and activities that achieve that within their time frame. And within the locations that they're comfortable with. So sometimes that's their own schoolyard, sometimes that's the community nature center, sometimes that's our city parks, sometimes that means they're taking a trip to the wastewater treatment plant and seeing engineering in action in real life. I actually just got a request today if we can connect our students with learning about how police departments work and what police officers do. So these are just great questions where students and teachers are looking at linking their standards to outdoor hands-on learning in our communities. So then we, oops, uh-oh.
I have to do it from here, Ellen.
You did, oh.
Make it full screen again.
Oh, cool, this teamwork. So then basically we go over that with them, we finalize all the lessons, and then we do all the scheduling, the buses, the management of all that for our teachers, right? Our teachers have a lot they're focusing on, and our goal with this is not to ask our teachers to do another project or another work. It's to make sure that it's easy for them to access these engaging opportunities for their students in the disciplines that they're interested in focusing on. After that, we run the show, we reflect with our teachers, and we do annual evaluations with our students and our teachers to make sure that the program is achieving its goals and we have room to grow and targets for the next year. I'll be coming out with our annual evaluation report very soon, this is our annual report on the overall operations, but I also want you to be able to see some of the statistics and feedback from the teachers and students as well. And moving forward with this process, there is a small note in the bottom. We are going to be working with our curriculum planning team at the district level to ensure that these outdoor learning opportunities find their alignment and their role within the DIGs, so our district instructional guides, making sure that not only are they standards aligned activities, but they're happening at the right times in ways that best support our teachers' curriculum and that they're distributed evenly across the district, because we've had the exciting development. As of last fall, we were already completely booked. So there is an amazing demand for these supportive tools for our teachers and these engagement opportunities for students, and we want to make sure that that's distributed in the way that best works for everyone in the district. So we're going to be doing some district-wide planning to ensure that involvement going forward. So I just want to give you an example because it's one thing to say this is what we do and it's another thing to see it. So this is just one of our programs that happens in the spring. Basically what we do is, like I said, we're working with the teachers. We develop the curriculum map so they know the series of field trips that they're going on. They know the learning objectives. They know the assignments that are assessed and how that will work. With the rubrics, they have their ideas, concepts, activities, and skills that piece together what a program might look like. So this is a 5th grade program on creeks and watersheds. Then we, whoopsies, someday. Is that you, Sarah?
No,
Okay.
you're right there. No.
Get out of here. Okay, lovely. So this is an example of what the standards look like that are covered in one program. This is just our 5th grade Creeks and Watershed program, and this is our 17-page document of all of the state standards that are addressed in this program through the field trips. And the initial part of this, pages 1 through 9, show the field trips alignment to the core subjects. And as we get down to these other pages, we'll also see that we also have the field trip alignment for physical education, health, arts, and career literacy as well. So not only do we want to support those main subjects, we also want to find opportunities to integrate the learning that's happening across with those interdisciplinary hands-on opportunities. So just to give an example, here's one of the places where they're doing scientific studies in the National Forest with National Forest Park Rangers. They're collecting their data. And this year we did data interpretation the first year, and this year our teacher said, let's add a little boost of graphing to this. We want to really hone in on this skill. It will really support our students with the tests coming up. So part of this program is students have workbooks. Most of our field trips, there's a worksheet or a workbook that students will follow along with that helps guide their learning and document that process. So the students receive these books that has their contracts, their goal setting. They write descriptive narratives. They integrate vocabulary words. We also can get down to some of the species documentation that they're doing here. There's a lot of map usage, map interpretation, and really understanding how can we take that skill that's a social studies skill and apply it to our community here in Prescott and all the resources here that they can touch and engage with in a hands-on way. So we cover this, we do history, we do timelines, you know, they're out there doing amazing stewardship projects too that are initiated by them. They're practicing writing letters, they're doing all this, and you know, here's an example of where they took their field data and they turned these into graphs. So I just want to use this as a moment to talk about what outdoor learning really is, because I think sometimes we are under the confusion that our kids are going out there and they are finding animal tracks and chasing them around or something, which animal tracking is an amazing skill that can support a lot of our science standards, especially if we're looking at area and perimeter and frequencies of occurrences within said locations and statistics. But there's also, I want to say that this is standards-based learning. It's hands-on, it's outdoors, but we are doing the things that are on the test, and we are trying to support our teachers and our students in loving the things that they're going to find on those tests and that they're going to be learning in the classroom, and bring real-life meaning to it so that not only do they engage with this and have this excitement about this, but they see it in terms of their career as well and how they could apply this as they become scientists or who knows, school board members, all the amazing ways you can go in your life and love your learning and love what you do. So I wanted to give you a real example of what actually the outdoor learning our students are doing looks like.
Ellen, share what you said to students about soil moisture.
Well, so we got some cool science tools. If you want to go out and test with heat radars and soil moistures, got soil moisture testers we added this year, and it was so popular that instead of having one student be our soil moisture data collector and present that back, they all decided that everyone had to have an opportunity to test the soil moisture, and that either they would try and average it in the field with no calculators, which some groups made a bold effort for, or that they would argue about whose soil was the most accurate location for moisture testing to be representative of the entire forest's data collection. They were very enthusiastic. I had not expected soil moisture to be so popular. But this is just one of the cool ways you see. It was the same with the temperature guns and measuring surface temperature in different life zones. You know, there's just, there's excitement and there's wanting, and then they go back to their classrooms and they're like, yeah, let's get out our graphs. Why does your graph look like that? who tested your soil moisture? You know, it was a great classroom debate. So just want to share that it's so fun when you see something come to life like that with the learners and with your teachers. They love it. I mean, we can share, these are just some of those quotes from our teachers, from our kids. And really, I just always want to use my platform too to not share my opinion on it, but share what's being experienced by the people that we're all here to serve and make those resources for. So I think that, again, we got some really smart kids I got to watch out for here. I believe outdoor learning is much more stimulating and might even improve children's ability to focus, said one 10-year-old. This is what they would like you all to know as our decision makers in our community. And I think, you know, PUSD has a really long, rich history of integrating outdoor learning from when they first started the Nature Center in 1974 and on up. And so it's just really exciting to celebrate that legacy, give you all the report, and give you a little update on what that's actually looking like with our teachers and in our classrooms. And that is all. So if you have questions or you just want a tour, let me know.
Can I just make a quick comment?
Yes.
I took my young grandchildren to the Nature Community Center last month with full intentions of going on the trail and identifying plants and picnicking at the pond. We did not get past the play kitchen inside the entryway. It is a marvelous place. If you have grandkids and you're looking for something to do, take them to the Nature Center.
And
you
we
will not be.
Thank you, Jade. And we also, if you want to save the date, we've received some amazing community funding that has covered paving our district parking lot in that area, but also adding in paver trails to the whole upper loop of the trail there. So not only is this, you know, a beautification act for the learning spaces for our students in our city, but it's also now wheelchair accessible for our students who use mobility devices and our community members who use mobility devices to be able to get outside and enjoy nature and have the same access to all of these great learning opportunities as their peers. So please join us for that. I'll send a message out as well. Thank you.
Wait,
Just a
you're not
minute.
done yet.
Okay.
Are there any questions from other board members or concerns?
No, I do have a comment. I can remember going to the Nature Center 37 years ago and stepping out of a classroom in Granite Mountain and then going behind that fence and stepping in a whole new world in a matter of minutes. I mean, you playing with the frogs on the pond or whatever. I am so glad that, I mean, you've taken it to a whole new level. I'm surprised, honestly, we haven't lost her to the Discovery Channel, but you do a great job, Ellen.
Well,
Thank you.
Ellen is
Thank
getting
you.
a lot of recognition and creating a model program really for other school districts to
It's amazing.
emulate. And she has big ideas about growing this program. Are you at capacity right now as far as
Well,
field
we
trips?
haven't planned, but we haven't finalized all our dates, but I'm assuming by the end of August we will be completely booked for the year. And this is, you know, I'm up here as me with a hat, but there's also an amazing team of AmeriCorps members, park rangers, and community members that really help make this happen. And even with them, we've found that there's a big demand, and we're going to keep seeking resources to make sure that this stays an opportunity, especially stays an opportunity that's not at a cost to our district. I think that's been one of the most powerful things about this partnership is the really minimal investments we can make and great return of investments from our community to make this happen. So I also really like how we've been able to achieve so much without putting that as another burden on, you know, a district or a school, but really as like a community asset everyone contributes to. So.
Take a moment to look at this because she really highlights the partnerships, the amount of money that's raised to support these programs, the impact on students. This is, well, it's an easy, really interesting read. So, Ellen, we are blessed to have you amongst us.
Thank you all.
And teaching our children, and thank you very much.
And please don't, you know, be shy. I would be happy to meet with anyone and give you more details if you want to look at numbers or you want to look at lessons or you want to see the site. Please just reach out. I want to make sure, again, this is a community opportunity for students, and community should always be involved. So thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, our next item of business is a summary of current events. Mr. Tenney.
Well, thank you, Mr. Freyer. First of all, Ms. Basher, that was fantastic. We really, really appreciate what you do for our kids. Of all of the different quotes and voices and whatnot that were up there, the one that caught my eye was one of our fifth grade teachers who said it brings relevance to reading, writing, math, science, and oral communication skills. That's fantastic. That's what we want from every one of our programs and every one of our curricula, and that is great to hear that we have teachers who feel that way and kids who feel that way. So appreciate everything you do. Well, a couple of things. Some people are under the impression that since it's summer vacation, not much is going on in the school district. Nothing could be further from the case. When I got here relatively early this morning, the entire parking lot for the district office here was full, and the street parking was all full. I had to park around the block because we had some terrific things going on with some training for our leaders and coaches and whatnot. School starts up here in 16 days. We have kids coming back, so it's coming around the corner. Saw some teachers get super excited and kind of depressed all at the same time. But it is coming up quick. In the meantime, we have several things that are going to be happening. One is that this coming Monday, we have new teacher orientation starting. Mr. Binder, off the top of your head, do you remember a rough figure of how many new certified staff we have starting with us this year?
We have about 30 teachers and about 37 when you add in support services.
Fantastic, very good. So about 180 teachers returning and about 30 that will be new to us. And they'll start a week-long orientation with us on Monday. Prior to that, we have a small handful of people who are working on their teacher certification through a program that's called Keystone. That actually starts tomorrow. We have 6 people that will be starting on their training tomorrow, 3 days in advance of our regular teacher orientation. And then we have 3 continuing folks from last year, so there'll be 9 people involved total in that. That's been really a keystone to some of our recruitment and filling our teaching positions with qualified folks. So we appreciate the people who've been involved with that and the board who had the foresight to approve that program. Convocation is coming up. That's our first meeting of all of our district staff. We'll be doing that July 31st at 2:30. That's always an exciting time to see people that we haven't seen for a couple of months and feel the excitement of the new school year starting up just a couple of days before the kiddos come back. We have been working all summer long, really spring and summer, on teacher staffing. Arizona is a state where last year, during the school year, over 2,000 teaching positions were unfilled. Mr. Binder, can you tell us how many PUSD teaching positions are unfilled right now?
We're at 0 right now.
0. That is fantastic. If you can find a school district our size anywhere in Arizona that can make that same claim today, I want to know about it. That's really a credit to our wonderful principals who create great culture in our schools, to our board who's had the foresight to continue to raise our teacher pay to the point where it's just above average in one of the lowest paid states in the United States, but we're getting people here. We're willing to pay the pine tree tax and work with our great kids and our great families here, so we are super excited about that. And then the last thing I'll mention, do you have a photo for me? There you go. Our Taylor Hicks Teacher Village that the board has approved and will be looking at approving an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Prescott this evening is underway. There are 5 of the 6 homes that have already been placed there. I went out this afternoon, snapped a couple of photos. It was rather warm, but we had some good folks working out there. They've got all the water and sewer lines up to the parking lot, ready to go, and you can see the buildings are on supports. The foundations under them, block wall foundations and whatnot, will be coming soon, and then one more building as well. And we're still on target to have this done right around the end of August, so we're super excited about that and that partnership that we have with the city of Prescott to take a little bite out of the workforce housing issue that the city of Prescott has generally, and to help us with recruiting in the future for PUSD teachers. This is an area of need for us that the board has had the foresight to address, so I appreciate that. Those, Mr. Freyer, are my current events.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Tenney? All right, are there any governing board comments for this special meeting? We probably covered it all last week, right? Okay. All right. Our next item of business is the consent agenda. Are there any questions or items that need clarification on the consent agenda this week for board members?
I got a comment, and then I do have a question. One comment is just the partnership that we have with Sacred Heart, the private school. This is nothing new. I just want to point that out. We've engaged with a lot of different grants with them in partnership. It's nice to see we continue these types of partnership and that collaboration with all the schools around the area, whether it's charter or private, and this is not out of the ordinary. So good on you guys. And then for the sole source, I know we have a question, or there's a proprietary justification. And I noticed that on it, there's one portion that asks about requiring a formal competitive bid for proposals to be issued exceeding $100,000. And then we have the 3 bids below the $100,000. Is it a matter of a formal bid as opposed to 3 different bids? And then also the threshold, it said a $10,000 threshold. Is that correct, those 3 areas?
Correct. If we're going to do any business with a vendor, as soon as a purchase reaches 10,000. 10,000 ends up having to have that, us go and quote it out.
For the 3.
For the 3,
Right.
and that's for business from 10,000 to 100,000. It needs to be a written quote, so we need something from them saying either we can't meet your deadline for the service you're inquiring about, that's a bid, or here is our hourly charge for our technicians to do this job and the estimated total cost for the whole job. You get 3, we analyze which one meets our needs the most, with the financial commitment being the biggest factor in our consideration. But if a job is over 100,000, that goes to the competitive bid process. That's either the invitation for bid or the request for proposal.
Great.
With a sole source is you have that structure of procurement, but the governing board does have the authority for either one of 2 purposes: a proprietary product. There isn't anything to quote out. Last week, the weather station, where we're getting real-time data on lightning, was an example of a proprietary sole source request. This is a continuation because we've been using Zern for our math assessment and intervention ever since the school fiscal year 2000, I believe it was. And so every year we've been quoting it out. We've been quoting it out because it costs, Zern is $12,500. It's over that $10,000 mark. And I got with our auditors and said, do we need to still quote this out if we bring it to the governing board as a sole source, because we have shown a history of it meeting the district needs? And if we quote it out and needed to go with another company, it would be detrimental to the organization because the students are familiar with it. We use it K-8, the teachers are familiar with it. This is an example of that continuation sole source that the governing board could vote on, and then we don't have to get the quotes. It bypasses that quote 10 to 100,000. That's what you're voting on. Clear as a mud?
You bet. Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
Great job.
One other note I want to make, and normally we don't do this about consent agenda, but since it's so short, is just that our intergovernmental agreements with MIC-TED is included in this. So I want to say thank you to the Mountain Institute Career and Technical Education Program for the partnership. We're going to renew that for another year with approval of the consent agenda. And so we want to be sure that people know we're working with MIC-TED to create these satellite courses and opportunities for students in areas that give them vocational and highly skilled training. So, all right. Any other questions about the consent agenda? All right. Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And the motion passes. Okay, we're entering our study and voting session. Sarah, do we have speakers for tonight?
We have 4.
4, thank you. Okay, so speakers are allowed to speak 2 study and voting item sessions as long as they've filled out a request to speak prior to this item coming up on the agenda. We have 4 tonight. I'll remind the audience that speakers are allowed 3 minutes. Ms. Torres will have a box up here that gives you a green, a yellow, and a red light. It'll tell you Is it within 30 seconds you get a yellow light? And at red, your time is up, and we will, if we have to gavel you done, we'll do that at that point. Keep your comments to the item that you are speaking to. Please do not get off topic, or we will have to redirect you. The board will not respond to your comments at this point. This is not a public hearing. This is a speaking to a study and voting items issue. Please keep your comments civil, and we will do our best to make sure that everybody gets their full 3 minutes of time to speak during this session. Speakers will be called up in the order that their form was received. So our first speaker is Ms. Ruth Ashkenazi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, the floor is yours.
All right. Hello, Governing Board. Hello, fellow citizens. My name is Ruth Ashkenazi, and I served on the K through 5 committee of the Science Curriculum Adoption Team. I want to first thank PUSD's Director of Instructional Support, Kelsey Secor, for inviting me to take part, especially after I came out in opposition to the TCI Social Studies curriculum. As part of the science team, I vetted the 5th grade McGraw-Hill textbook. I think it is standards-based, pedagogically sound, well-organized, age-appropriate, and inspiring. I was on the lookout for politically and religiously sensitive issues, including but not limited to discussions of sex and gender. It came to my attention that Savvis, the publisher of PUSD's proposed high school science curriculum, has a textbook positing sex as non-binary. Given the ideological diversity of our community, I flagged this as potentially problematic. At least 2 other team members and I shared our concern with PUSD, and we learned that the district will not be using this particular book. Being involved also gave me the opportunity to take part in discussions with PUSD teachers. I attended 2 classes during which lessons from the curricula were piloted by the teachers. I was impressed with the amount of student engagement, along with the way teachers were able to connect with kids of myriad focus and ability. But I think what impressed me the most about this whole experience was being invited to join the PUSD team despite having come out definitively against the recently adopted social studies curriculum. And I think this is so very profoundly important because it underscores a truth of overarching significance to our whole community. We can strongly disagree on important matters, but we can still work together. Respectful communication, involvement, and transparency comprise a quadruple win for our schools, for our students, for our parents, and for our community at large. We don't need to agree on everything, and clearly we won't. But respectful communication, involvement, and transparency go a long way toward building trust while benefiting children. On that note, I'd like to encourage everyone here in this room and everyone watching online to get involved if you aren't already. I believe you will see much that inspires you, and you might encounter certain things that concern you. By being actively involved as a tutor or in some other capacity, you'll be in a great position to share your talents, ideas, and concerns with teachers and the administrators while helping students learn. I want to again express my appreciation for the chance to volunteer, and I hope that everyone who gets involved will feel as welcome as I did. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Jack Bennett. Is Mr. Bennett here?
Thank you. I'm a scientist. I have a graduate degree in chemical engineering and ran my own research company with and have 34 issued U.S. patents. And I would just like to say that I really congratulate the committee for the adoption of the Savas material, science curriculum. I've reviewed the textbooks. They are very up to date. They are accurate as far as I could tell, very readable, very easily to assimilate, and I just wanted to congratulate the committee on what I consider to be a really excellent science curriculum, certainly far, far in advance of any science textbook that I had when I was young growing up. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Our next speaker is Mr. James Kendall.
I'll be short. I just filled out the form in case there was something I strongly disagreed with that wanted to speak to. I'm very impressed with the way you've gone about all of this. I think that one of the important things of a science curriculum is that it gives people a sense of logic and critical thinking, which is fundamental to science. I have a PhD in nuclear engineering. I went to a one-room schoolhouse in the first grade. The only thing I learned was how to make a corn gun out of a clothespin. But I was fortunate to, even though I went to a small school of 50 kids per class, I was fortunate enough to have some dedicated teachers, and I'm very impressed with what you do, and I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kendall. Our fourth speaker is Mr. Paul Bunnell.
Hello, I'm Paul Bunnell. I've been a science teacher at Prescott High School for the past 13 years and was involved in the selection of some of these curricula. The past year I had the privilege of teaching physics, engineering, and biology, and I have seen I don't know how many different physics textbooks. The one that we formerly had took the approach of presenting a bunch of math proofs and then saying, now you understand physics, right? I never used it. The new book is the best I have ever seen. If I were describing these new state science standards in a couple sentences, there are many differences between the old ones, but the biggest one is that the scientific method is not just a method of how to perform science or how to do labs, but should infuse the instructional process. So give students a phenomena, ask them to observe it, ask if we change some of these input parameters, what might happen differently? And it's that style of instruction which the textbook takes to delivering its content. It is both simple in that it's easy to read, like I could give students this, ask them to read it, and expect them to get something out of it, but still rigorous because it's asking them to truly understand it and be able to manipulate those concepts. And then as for the biology curriculum, we had at least 4 biology teachers take a stack of books from different publishers, look at their online offerings, and independently of one another, come up with our top choices. And every single one of us came back with this curriculum as their #1 pick before ever coming together to debate, like, all right, which one do you like, which one do you like, which made doing the group final decision very easy. All right, so both of these are hands down amazing resources that I wish I had 10 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bunnell.
Thank you,
And those are all of our speakers for tonight. We really appreciate you all being here and coming forward to speak to us. We do take your input to heart, for sure. Next would be a presentation from Kelsey Secor, the Director of Instructional Support.
Actually, Kelsey had an urgent family matter
okay.
that she had to address this evening,
Sure.
so I'm going to go in her place.
Okay. Ms.
Plus, we
Reed.
have lots of our committee members here as well.
Great.
Sorry, we have standing room only, but you can go around the dais if you want. Yeah, go around there and you can stand over there. Are there any other empty seats? Oh, there's one other empty seat. Well, hello. My name is Marty Reed, Assistant Superintendent. When I was in Kelsey's position as the curriculum director, I didn't get to adopt any curriculum. So I'm really excited here to be here for this. We didn't have any money back then, so I never got to do that part of my job. So I'm going to give you a brief overview. Remember in May, Kelsey and the committee came. We had 14 folks from the committee here. They did this fabulous presentation about the standards, what the curriculum does to address those standards, why they picked McGraw-Hill for K-5 and Savvis for 6th through 12th. I'm just going to give you a brief overview to kind of refresh your memory. You can ask more questions if you'd like. I'll talk a little bit about the review. It has been on review for the public for over 60 days, and then we'll go from there. Where'd you say the clicker was? That? Yes. Yay. Okay. So a little bit about the history. You can see that the last time we adopted science curriculum was around 2006. Curriculum cycles were typically at that time adopted every 7 to 10 years. That's been halted due to funding issues. And so there's some stats there about soft capital funding was reduced, which is what we can use for curriculum, the addition of district additional assistants. In 2018, Arizona adopted new state standards for science, and we were, as Mr. Bunnell mentioned, using curriculum from 2006 to try to adjust to those new standards. And so finally, we've gotten some more money for soft capital, and we're ready to come to you and ask for an adoption of new science curriculum. Just a reminder about what the new standards are asking us to do. There's 3 main dimensions. There's the implementation of the science and engineering practices. So engineering is now a big part of our science requirements. The cross-cutting concepts, and these are concepts that we find go across almost all science standards. Cause and effect, stability and change, and how do we kind of highlight those with our students through the science standards. And then finally, dimension 3 are the core ideas of knowing science and using science. So no longer is it rote memorization, but it's how do you learn those concepts and then use them to test hypotheses, to study phenomena. And so the standards are more about critical thinking, problem solving, hands-on experience, different modalities of learning, and more than just memorizing facts. So we were really looking for a curriculum that would address those standards. How come you did it for Ellen, but you're not advancing for me? No teamwork. Just a reminder about the timeline. The timeline here you can see in fall we began studying the different options for curriculum, getting samples. In January through April, the committee met. They spent thousands of hours. There were 6 formal meetings, but between those meetings, there was lots of group work, lots of meetings, lots of testing of the lessons, using the different books, getting feedback from the students, seeing what projects, what concepts were really covered by these textbooks. Remember, we had a teacher bring in those 3D models that she had her students make around energy, solar energy, and really looking at different ways to learn the concepts. So lots and lots of hours from January to April. Then we put the curriculum up for public display, both hard copies here in the district. I have some hard copies up there for the board if they'd like to look at those, but also the online versions were accessible to anyone who wanted to look at it. And then we were hoping to come in June and ask for the adoption, but because of summer schedules, we've bumped it to this evening. So that's where we are in our timeline. These are the committee members. We had a great representation of teachers, administrators, instructional coaches, parents, board members, and community members. We really welcomed the input from everyone. We had a couple of our board members attend some of the meetings, and we had community members like Mr. Nelson here, and of course our teachers, instructional coaches, and administrators. And I want to thank that committee for their hard work. In the first meeting, they developed this rubric, and this rubric just kind of was, what are the things that we're looking for in a new curriculum? And I'll just highlight that the second one down, aligned to Arizona standards, was probably the top one. If we're looking at a curriculum that didn't align to what we're required to teach by the state, I mean, we had to kick it out because that's what we're required to teach. But we were also looking at, you know, a balance of print and digital, resources that came with it, ability for differentiation, you know, how are the lesson plans? Is it teacher friendly? Is it student friendly? Lots of components that the committee used to rate the different curriculum. And so as we presented in May, we came up with our recommendations of kindergarten through 5th grade is the McGraw-Hill Inspire series, and 6th through 12th is the Savas series. And what I'll tell you is, if you can remember back from that meeting, those teachers gave us a lot of information, but what they talked about were the questioning strategies that the curriculum used around phenomena. Remember, they talked a lot about phenomena, and that gets kids inspired to learn about why is the sky blue, what is lightning, why are we having lightning, and then a variety of modalities, projects, labs, writing, outdoor work, online work, group work, individual work, lots of variety to meet the individual learners. Investigation, hypothesis, problem solving, using multiple resources. They talked about the textbook that allows you to look at multiple resources and research, and really the college and career readiness. And I don't know if you remember, but the piece that really excited me was the alignment with classroom instruction that works and meeting those instructional strategies as well. So lastly, I'll just say we're recommending those two curriculum for adoption today. They've been up for display for over 60 days. We're required to do at least 60 days. During that time, we had 8 people come in and review the curriculum. We had 3 leave comments that were positive. Some of them spoke today. We had 1 email review that came in that was a concern about a Savas biology textbook, but it turned out it's not the biology textbook that we're adopting. They were referring to the Campbell authored biology book. We're looking at the Levine and Miller book. So that comment wasn't applicable to this. And I'm here to entertain questions. We have many committee members here to entertain questions about the curriculum.
Okay. Questions from the board?
I have one for a fellow board member who was on the committee. Linda, what did you think?
Well, I was invited very late into the committee because Andy had been on it and had to go out. I saw a small part of it, and I read all of the rubrics, and I thought it looks like a really exciting program, and I think that it will light a fire with our kids, and that's what we need. We need to compete in the world of science. So I think it's obvious going to do that with the teachers, so I'm glad to hear about it.
And if I can follow up, since I gave my seat up because I wanted Ms. Kahn to experience this. But the first 2 meetings I think I attended, and I'm a former science teacher, and I was lost. I'm just so impressed with the work of this committee and how you could dig into this and find the information. I just want to say kudos to all of you for the work that you did, because maybe I'm just not very smart, but when I entered teaching, it was like, here's your textbook, teach the class. There is so much more that goes on right now, and just thank you to all of our teachers and community members and administrators that dug into this and did the hard work.
Yeah.
because it was a lot.
It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
I just want to commend the administration for really forward thinking and thinking that, you know, it's very important that we involve everybody, no matter where they're coming from. This has got to be kind of the textbook, if you will, standard. I think we have a lot of people within the community that should follow, that you know, can learn from what you all did. We're all going to have differences, and we learned a lot, and we're learning a lot through this. But the comments tonight were tremendous. I'm happier than, I don't even know, but just to listen to those comments. And this is the way we should be. You know, we're a public entity. We all have different viewpoints, but you know, this is still Prescott. This is still a fine community. And we teach some amazing kids. And I think what the community members saw is also that we have tremendous teachers here. I mean, we are lucky, and we're lucky to have the retention that we have, and we're fortunate to keep these teachers and support them. And I just really have loved what I saw, and just continue doing that. It's a great way to do it. Thank you.
Any other board comments?
The only thing I wanted to perhaps add is I was on the K2 part of the committee, and what I found exhilarating was to listen to the teachers talk about how we can integrate this into the rest of our day. It's not just going to be, okay, kids, 1 o'clock science time. It was, how can I look at these objectives, these standards, and mix them with the whole rest of my day and make it part of our day, not just a separate subject matter, which is so important with primary kids, and that's what our teachers are doing. And they're integrating it all and making it a whole child experience, not just one genre.
And
Kudos to
that
them all.
McGraw-Hill program includes some leveled readers.
Yes, it does, which is amazing.
So our teachers can use that during reading time as well.
And I think the real advantage, if this is adopted, is, you know, as we begin making steps to improve our achievement scores, we need a curriculum that matches what is available and is assessed. And so I think that's one of the big steps. You know, turning anything around, any large enterprise around, is not like steering a bike. You can't twist it real fast and everything changes. It's going to take some time. So this is just hopefully a big step, but a major first step towards us getting to those points where we're seeing those standard improvements on a regular basis.
That would be nice.
Anything else? Okay, if not, can I get a motion to adopt the K-12 science curriculum as presented?
I would love to make the motion to adopt the K-12 science curriculum as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the K-12 science curriculum as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes.
Woohoo!
Congratulations.
I got some curriculum.
Way to go, Marty. Way to go.
I did it. 8 years later.
Amazing.
All right. Thank you all again for being here. We appreciate it. Our next item of business is very exciting. We are looking at approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Prescott and PUSD for the services of school resource officers at Prescott High School, as presented. Officer Scott, I believe you're up.
Well, good evening. Thanks for having us here again. Hey, I'm excited. I'm not as excited as the gal that talked about the trails and stuff. And I'm thinking I'm going to send those two guys out to do the measuring the moisture in the soil, because that looked like a lot of fun. And they need to be outside more. But I just want to say thanks. I was trying to think how long. Officer Holmes just said this is going to be his 6th year as the SRO up there. And I was thinking, I was like, no, it's like 3 years. So I've had the honor of working with y'all in the different positions in this board and the teachers and the different schools for a long time, and finally, I just want to say thank you from our standpoint with the police department, that, y'all as a group have looked at the importance of keeping and maintaining a school resource officer program. I'm very proud of our high school program, and I would love to see, I know all of us would love to see police, have a type of a role in all of our schools, and not just in PUSD, but all of them. And some, unfortunately, it's just not possible. But when that grant and the hard work that the different players through PSD put in to get this grant to happen, unbelievable, and I'm really proud of our admin for continuing with that partnership, David gets better and better each year. These guys are phenomenal role models. Andrew just graduated from Mile High Middle School like a year and a half ago. But, yeah, so he'll go back and have a real strong impact. Sorry, Andrew. But I really have a lot of admiration for these two men, and I think they're going to serve our students and our student faculties, or in the school's faculties very, very well. And you guys can come up here because... Yeah.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yes, sir.
I want to correct myself. Sergeant Scott, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
But I also want to say we're talking about two separate items here, just so that the audience knows.
Yes.
The first item is the continuation of the agreement so that Officer Holmes would be at the high school, and the second one is a special. We'll get to that, but it's a grant that's we've received to have an officer at Mile High Middle School.
Yes, sir.
And so we want to be sure that the audience knows that there is going to be an additional officer on board with us, hopefully in the fall, as long as this is all approved.
Yes. So David, get up here. Did you hear that? That was my stripes talking right there. Yeah, so you should say a couple words.
Please keep.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Officer Holmes, Prescott High School Resource Officer. Some of you have probably heard about me. I hope it's all been good. Why are you laughing about that? Gosh. Hey, good to see you, Andy, Linda, all you guys, gals. It's awesome to be up here. All I can say is I love doing what I do. I mean, I know I spoke a lot last year, and I don't want to take up too much time because I know I can talk sometimes. But it's awesome. I still love what I do. I hope you guys will give me that chance to continue doing it and being that mentor for these kids because they do mean a lot to me. I don't only do it here. I do it outside of here with another high school, coaching football and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I love it. So, thank you guys for having me. If you can.
So on the first one, which is unless you have anything else, Sergeant Scott.
No, I was just going to say part of that this last year to, I don't know how many of you are aware of like the working relationship David has with like juvenile probation and the Juvenile Justice Center and that stuff. And he's pulled me along into that too. And there's a good follow through on the things that David gets involved in with faculty, and sometimes, when it gets into the criminal justice system, talking to his counterparts over there, where there's a lot of trying to get people, not hammering them with penalty, but trying to get them back on the right track. And that makes me really proud that we are able to work together from our position all the way around, and then keeping them in school as much as possible. And that's all part of this program too, and it's worth the investment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't even end at the high school, because they've invited me to go and do things at the Juvenile Detention Center with some of those kids that I unfortunately had to put there. I went and played basketball with them, went on some hikes, and even though that they're there and I put some of them there, they're happy to see me. So I'm continuing that mentorship over there as well and hoping to reintegrate them back to the high school and make sure that they do good. So it goes beyond that, and hoping to mitigate, so to speak, that school to prison pipeline, and I'm so happy that Andrew's come on. He filled in for me quite a few times. They weren't the best times. He walked into some clusters sometimes, but he handled it well. So I think that's going to actually really help us, him being over at Mile High with those kids coming in to mitigate, or combat some of those issues that they're having there to where they won't cross over to the high school. So things I think we can get a lot better in that aspect.
Can I just really quickly chime in? I appreciate that. You know, we've got a lot of important community partnerships, PUSD, with various organizations and entities in the community. This, in my mind, is perhaps our most important. I really, really appreciate the various things that we do with the city of Prescott. We'll actually be voting on 3 of them in a row this evening, but this first one is just key. As a social studies teacher at the high school for several years, and then as an administrator there, I got to work with several of our SROs. Our police department, top to bottom, left to right, is stellar. We've got such great ladies and gentlemen who work for the city of Prescott. We're so fortunate. And somehow they choose their very best ones to come work with us in our schools. It's awesome. They're there obviously for, you know, the potential eventuality that happens unfortunately in malls and parking lots and churches and movie theaters and sometimes schools across America, sometimes to prevent, you know, mass destruction, but also to keep kids safe in all sorts of ways. What I appreciate most is not only do they head off those kinds of things, but they just create a really positive culture with kids, looking up to people like David Holmes. I mean, how could you do better than Andrew Levin and David Holmes for role models for our kids? They
Did you ever think that would ever be said about you, Andrew? Yeah.
They're not only terrific police officers, they're gentlemen. They're just great human beings, and I love that our kids are influenced by them. I love that they get into our classrooms and they teach things about the different amendments to the Constitution and things like that. They just play so many positive roles, and kids who might otherwise learn to see the police as kind of their adversary learn to see them as their partners in our community. It's such a great thing for our schools and a great thing for our community overall, so I really, really appreciate that we're able to do this, and kudos to the city of Prescott and the police department particularly for helping us out this way and sending us such great folks.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I do want to say something. So we look at our resource officers as, you know, they're there if there's any type of threat in our, you know, the safety of our kids and our staff. But there are tens of thousands of hours that go into preventing all this, and they are a preventative measure. I mean, I always refer to as overseas the IED fight. You want to prevent something from everything left of boom before the actual event occurs. And that's really why they're there. And what Officer Holmes does, I mean, I've seen it countless times. He engages with these students. He's identifying where there's a potential for a kid to go astray. He's involved in milestones programs. He's involved in so many things that the community just doesn't even see. And seeing that and see how people relate to him and how it's going to happen at Mile High as well, we're in a safe place. Our kids are in a safe place because of forward thinking of our city and for administrators. And it's worth the money, every penny that we pay and the city pays for these resource officers. So I wish we could get a ton more, obviously, but what you guys do every single day, waking hour, it's unbelievable. So I just want to personally thank you and for protecting us and our kids.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments?
Okay. Well, thank you for being there. You guys are just incredible. I want to get somebody at every single school, and I want you guys to train the ones that can't be sworn police officers, but I want to get you a whole army of people. And Stan and I have discussed it, maybe getting some retired vets, some retired law enforcement. We got a bunch of them here. And I'm going to be reaching out to them to become volunteers, and you're going to have to manage them. So I'm looking forward to that.
We've already got a couple there, and it's working out great. So
Yeah, I want them down in elementary school too. That's where we need the,
well,
you know.
Ben and I have talked several times about trying to get an officer at what can we do to get an officer at every school, Lincoln, Granite, Via, even all the way up to Trinity and Skyview and stuff like that. I know the state right now is big on making sure those grants are there and really pushing them. We're just hoping to get more officers so we can say yes if we can get the schools to put in for that,
me jump in. It's quality, not necessarily quantity, okay? And the one thing I'm going to ask you guys to keep, I should say you all, to keep us on track, that we don't lose sight of that. The proudest thing I am about our program is we have officers that want to be there, that know the mission, and they know their role. And I am a firm believer in that you need to know your role in that school and in that environment. Where, you know, if you look and you take a step back and you look at nationwide school resource officer programs that have run awry or had issues, they had it was not the right fit. It was a knee-jerk reaction to get people in the school. You know, we have progressed, you know, over the years to get better and better at that. And, you know, I will stand at the front of that line and say ours is, yeah, we don't have all our schools covered, but we have who needs to be there and the successes that are with that. And I hang my hat on that, you know. And so if we get, you know, if David gets approved again, and we'll talk a little bit about Officer Lovin's position at Mile High, that's a great start. And we need to at least maintain that. You know, and then if we get further opportunities down the road, either in PUSD or other schools around here, we need to do our part and manage that there's the right person that fills those shoes. Because you get the wrong fit in there, or somebody that doesn't want to be there, they shouldn't even cross that threshold. You know, and so please, let's keep everybody, I don't know what the right phrase is, but keep everybody on check, and that's a priority.
So, thank you. And we appreciate it. You know, I've been up to the high school multiple times and met with Officer Holmes at the high school and seen him working, and I just appreciate the work that you do to meet the students where they're at and do what they need at that point to succeed, and that's the most important thing. So I do want to point out, just because this is, just so everyone knows, the district covers 75% of the cost of Officer Holmes at the high school, and the city of Prescott covers the other 25% of his costs. So this item, the high school resource officer, is where we are at now. Are there any other comments about the presentation or any questions? Okay. So could I get a motion to approve an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Prescott and PUSD for the services of school resource officers at Prescott High School as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the IGA between City of Prescott and PUSD for school resource officers at the high school. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Thank you. We'll see you soon. So next on the agenda is a little bit different. This item, again, with Sergeant Scott, is for a school resource officer at that grant fund that.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. As you mentioned, Mr. Frere, with the high school piece, the district covers most of that. That's unusual, actually, in our broader community. Chino Valley, the town of Chino Valley covers 100% of their SRO in their high school. And in Humboldt, it's 50-50. In Prescott, we're at a 75-25 balance, and that's something we may talk with the city about in the future, but we're absolutely committed to the program regardless of how things work. We're very fortunate that with the concern that is out there in the broader community regarding school safety, that people on the state level have stepped up and made additional grant funding available for school safety in the form of funding for school resource offices. And as you mentioned, we applied for and we're fortunate to be issued a grant 3 years. Am I remembering correctly? The initial term for that is 3 years and potentially renewable, so that 100% of the cost for the officer, and we're not just talking about the salary, of course, we're talking about all the benefits and retirements and all the other pieces there. Anyhow, 100% of the cost will be covered by a state-level grant, so that is fantastic. And our application was to have an officer at Mile High Middle School. That's where we see the second greatest need in our district, and it's been addressed in a lot of good ways already. And you know, David Holmes has been just spectacular, stellar at the high school last few years, and I thought, man, I hope we get somebody as good. And when I heard that they'd selected Andrew Lovin for this position, I thought, we just got it right there. This is another just gentleman who's going to do a terrific job for us. We're so excited to continue our partnership and broaden it in this way.
Okay, thank you. Sergeant Scott, do you want to say anything else?
Yeah, Andrew, this is Andrew's, I wrote it on my hand so I wouldn't forget, 7th year in law enforcement. This is, yeah. I just didn't want to mess it up. 7th year in law enforcement. He was in community services. He's a bike officer. He's done a lot of different things for our community over the past few years. Reassigned to patrol. I am, like I said, I'm a big fan of his. I'm a big fan of how both he and David know their role in this profession. And quite frankly, I think a lot of police officers don't necessarily know their role these days. These guys are solid in that, or I would have never supported them for these positions. I like that he's on both these guys are affiliated with our SWAT team, so we have that piece that if we ever need that tactical side, but that's a laundry list of skills, and I don't think it's a top skill that we need to have there, but it's there. And I'm confident with that. And we're not perfect, but we're willing to learn and get better, and that's the attitude I want there. So I just think this next year will be really interesting because it's a learning year for all of us. The curriculum, I think, is a solid curriculum from what I've seen, but we still have to learn on that as well. Both Andrew and David went to the National School Resource Officers Association conference this summer, so he got his endorsement in that program because that's part of this whole thing with Arizona's curriculum as well. And I think both programs have merit, and we're blessed to have that opportunity, I think. And I'm going to shut up now, but hopefully, we'll get through some trials, for the first few months anyway. And if we hit our mark, we'll start seeing, some real advantages with the transition from middle school to the high school, and hopefully curb some of the behaviors that aren't great behaviors. But anyway, I'm really happy for this opportunity.
Yeah. So, my name's Andrew Lovin, for those of you that haven't met me before, and I'm super excited. I was selected as the next SRO at Mile High. I felt like I spent a lot of last year in Mr. Binder's office dealing with some stuff, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the opportunity and hoping to make a difference in the kids' lives. So thank you guys for having me today.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions about this second SRO position? I guess I'd ask you, what are you excited about?
Yeah. Middle school.
It's a new challenge, so.
Okay. I think it takes a special person to be a middle school teacher.
Yes.
And I think a middle school SRO is going to be that same type of person. So we were behind you all the way. Yeah, true. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Could I get a motion to approve an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Prescott and Prescott Unified School District for the services of school resource officers at Prescott Mile High Middle School as presented?
I'll move that. Sorry, Jason.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the IGA between the City of Prescott and PUSD for services at Mile High Middle School for SROs. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? And that motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Ferrer, there's I don't know if you wanted to add some possible good news.
I would like, Sergeant Scott, could you wait for just a minute, and the officers wait for just a minute?
And Jamie Buna, our new federal programs grants director, is in the audience as well. So
Okay.
if we have questions about grants, but.
Is there another grant that you
Well,
wanted to
I
talk
was just going to say, I've spoken briefly with Sergeant Scott and you, and we did receive another grant for not SROs, but SSOs. Jamie's still digging into the details of exactly what that looks like, but it looks like we're going to have 20 hours of a peace officer at each of our other 4 campuses a week. Yeah, and it's basically officers can pick up the, what do you call it, after time or overtime? Or?
So my limited understanding with that is the only requirement is the officer cannot be on duty. So it would be like an off-duty job. I'm assuming it's going to look something like each school will publish a schedule of when they would like that coverage, when they want the officers on campus. So who knows? I think
we don't know details yet, but we're figuring it out.
So, and it can be any peace officer, Arizona certified peace officer that can fill that. So it's a cool opportunity.
Jamie, did I miss anything on that? Is that the gist of it?
You did not miss anything. Yeah, it's 20 hours a week at each school, and the principals can work out the schedule of how they want to use those hours, whether it's right at the start of the school and a dismissal or what makes sense for their site. And we'll be meeting with the police department not next week, but the week after to confirm those.
That's exciting.
Yep.
So thank you again for doing
More to come
More
on
to
that
come.
for all of you to be aware of.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, guys. If you've got to go. Okay, our next item is an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Prescott and PUSD for workforce housing.
Okay.
Mr. Tenney.
So we're looking here at a third very important IGA with the City of Prescott to help fill needs both on the city level and on the school district level. Again, that relationship that we have with them has been mutually beneficial in so many ways. We heard the outdoor education program. That's an example of our partnership with the city. These SROs that you've just approved is an example of that, and here's another one. This IGA that you've had in front of you for the last several days and has been available for some time for you to look over, goes over several details, and I'm happy to answer questions about anything, but broadly, the City Council voted probably been about 3-4 weeks ago, I think, on their end of things, unanimously to approve this IGA with the district, and now it's up to the district to consider whether they want to approve that with the city. The City Council has committed to covering costs for the construction of the teacher village regarding utilities and fees and engineering, et cetera. The total estimate of costs that would be covered is over $500,000, $503,582. So it's substantial. With the $500,000 grant that we got from the state for these homes and the $500,000 and change that the city is offering to help supplement, the school district only is out of our cash reserves from our building fund, only using about a third of the total cost, about $500,000 ourselves. So it's split 3 ways nicely, which is it's great for the amount of money that we'll have available for other things in the future. In return for the city making that substantial commitment, we're going to do what we've talked about from the very beginning, which is of the 6 homes that are being built, and you saw some pictures of those earlier. The 6 homes that are being built, we will dedicate 4 of them for our PUSD teachers and 2 of them for, what is the term that they use in here, for Prescott City essential workers. So the basic idea is that they reserve one for a firefighter and one for a police officer. They have the same types of issues that we have in terms of recruiting. People are super excited to become a police officer, move to Prescott, and then they realize, holy smokes, on my police officer salary, I can't afford to live here. What do I do? And some people make it work and some people don't. So they lose people in the same way that we lose people during the recruiting process sometimes. So the city is particularly excited about taking a little bite out of the overall workforce housing issue that we've got in town. Maybe a proof of concept piece of how the city can partner with another entity to work on this, but then also a direct benefit to a couple of first responders. And it will improve the neighborhood in that respect as well. 6 brand new homes, and 4 of them occupied by stellar teachers, and 2 of them occupied by first responders. This is going to be a benefit to everybody. If you've got questions about the specifics of the IGA, I'm super happy to address those, but that's the broad outline.
Any other questions?
Clark, has there been any discussion from the city about potentially using CDBG money? Is it eligible for that? Is that in the realm of possibility?
That's a great question. So CDBG is the Community Block Development Grant that you're talking about, and that's some federal monies that comes to the city to do improvements in the city that it's largely targeted toward lower income areas. That this is not what we found so far eligible under that. So we've not looked at the overlap. When I say we, I'm putting my city hat on briefly. The city has not looked at the overlap in that area, so it's just coming out of the general fund of the city, the costs here.
Just curious for any potential future development or whatever.
Yeah,
might happen,
potentially
so.
as we move forward with this. If this works out well, if this meets the needs that we feel it's going to meet for the school district, and it meets the needs that the city feels it's going to meet for them, there is potential, for expanding this in the future. There's room for a couple of more homes right there on Taylor Hicks if we wanted to go that direction. We've talked about it, Granite, and the city's got some property available. They've talked with us about, well, what about here? Would you be willing to do something? So, there's opportunities in the future if this goes well. Again, it's a proof of concept kind of a thing for the city and probably for us as well.
Great, thank you.
Other questions?
Who is going to be managing this property?
That is a great question. We've addressed it a couple of times in previous meetings, and I'm happy to do that again. RentRight in town has offered to do this for free for us. So there will be no costs coming out of the rent that go toward that. In the future, if RentRight does that for 2 or 3 years and they say, this has been great, but we can't do it anymore, no problem. There are other property management companies in town, including them, that we could use a portion of the rent proceeds to pay for. So there won't be any ongoing cost to the district as far as that's concerned. So yeah, it's a great question in that we do a lot of things very well as teachers and administrators and clerical staff, et cetera, but property management is not in the wheelhouse of most of us. So we've got some professionals in town who've said, this is terrific. This helps my community. I want to be a part of that. We'll do that for free for you.
Sweet. I wanted to point out too that this is a little bit different from the original approval we gave in that there's a cost savings to the district. Is that correct?
Yes, a significant cost savings to the district. Initially, we talked with the city conceptually about covering a portion of the costs, but the city council felt this was important enough that they were willing to cover all of the utilities, connection costs and fees and whatnot. And again, it's substantial to the tune of $500,000. And as a result, or kind of in balance for that, like I say, 2 of the homes would be dedicated to the city for a term of under this IGA 30 years.
Okay.
I have another concern about this whole thing. I don't have a lot of information about it, but it was brought up to me that, we don't allow alcohol on our school property. We don't allow weapons on our school property. We don't allow drugs on our school property. And suddenly we're infringing on people's personal rights to do that. And there, I believe Arizona statutes that we can't allow those things. I mean, we do a one-time thing for, like we're going to do tonight, or, but to waive those things, I have some serious concerns about that.
Okay. Well, you're partially correct about what you're saying. There are limitations on that. Some of those are already taken care of by statute. For instance, the peace officers on campus will, of course, be allowed to have weapons. That's written into Arizona state statute. Private individuals will not be allowed to have weapons in their home. That'll be part of the lease agreement, and it's totally up to them. If they're not interested, there are lots of other places in town that they could look at, but if they're interested in being part of district housing, they would have to give up that, just as they would. One of the other things that will limit is we're not going to allow large dogs, and so if somebody's got a pet, sorry, we're taking away their constitutional right to have a pet for the 10 months that they're leasing from us, I suppose.
10 months,
so,
okay.
Yeah. So the idea is, once again, we've talked about this in the past, but to start with a 1-year lease with people. So if I hire Mr. Nelson, he's moving from Fredonia, Arizona. And he's going to wave goodbye to both the other people in Fredonia, move to Prescott, become a science teacher for us at Mile High Middle School. He's going to find, holy smokes, I'm doing okay. I'm going to make $56,000 as a teacher, but I cannot find a place to live in Prescott for that. And in the future, we'll be able to say, absolutely, that's an issue that a lot of people have. we've got a short-term solution for you. So we would offer a one-year lease up front to people as we hire them and as they express need for that until the 4 buildings that we've got are full. And Andy would, instead of having several days to find someplace to land in Prescott, he'd have several months to find someplace to land in Prescott. So this is not going to flip our housing market in Prescott on its head. It's not going to change that. It's not going to make things less expensive for him a year later, but he's got months and months to make connections, seek out something appropriate for him and his family.
I just hate giving up school property. I want to grow our enrollment, and if we give it all to other things, we don't have space for our kids, you know.
That would be a legitimate concern if we weren't talking about our largest school campus per enrollment in the entire district, and the fact that 3/4 of what will house the houses that have already been approved, by the way, that's not what we're talking about tonight, was a gravel lot that was fenced in and was used by teenagers to make bad decisions on the weekends. So we're not giving up any space as far as that's concerned.
Okay.
And I can speak to being a principal there for 12 years. If I could have had that space being a productive use consistently, I would say, where can I sign up? Because it was just a managerial nightmare because I would have to go by and pick up bottles from people having, bonfires and bad choices the night before. And even the little bit it cuts into the play area. Taylor Hicks has the biggest playground, and it won't be missed.
Yeah, by far of our 3 elementary schools, Taylor Hicks's still existing playground is probably 5 to 6 times the size of the other 2 schools.
Right. We don't want to grow our enrollment and take away their playground space. We want to grow our enrollment and put education buildings on those things is what I'm thinking. So I'm still not sold on the whole idea of it all. We're bringing salaries up, and I like that, that we're doing that. And you give a person a fish and they eat for a day. You teach them to fish and they buy a house. So I think that's what I had to do when I was growing up.
Sure. And we're just giving people time to catch a fish. Instead of saying you got 15 minutes to catch a fish or you can't work for us, we say you got a year.
All right. I'll compromise that way.
Those are good concerns. And again, most of these we've addressed as you've already, as a board, approved the various stages of this. Tonight, we're just looking at the IGA with the city of Prescott.
Other questions? Okay. So can we get a motion to approve an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Prescott and Prescott Unified School District for workforce housing as presented?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve an IGA between the city of Prescott and PUSD for workforce housing. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion passes. All right.
Want me to take it?
Due to a conflict of interest, I am going to recuse myself from the next 2 items. I won't be participating in discussion or voting on these next 2 items. So, Mr. Vice President,
All right.
this is yours.
We still have a quorum, right, for that? What do we still
do?
3 of 5. All right, good. All right. Next item is consider approving a revised lease agreement with the Margot Fontaine Academy of Ballet and PUSD District 1, or PUSD number 1, as presented.
Great. So thank you, Mr. Vice President. And thanks for taking over for a few minutes here. So a couple of years ago, we were approached by folks from the Margot Fontaine Academy of Ballet about a potential partnership with PUSD in terms of leasing some of our unused space at Mile High and here on the Washington campus for them to establish their ballet school here in Prescott. Things are going relatively well for them. We're looking at a modification of that lease agreement tonight. It's already been approved by the board. The Ballet Academy is making some tenant improvements, we'll call it, I guess, to some of the unused larger spaces at Mile High that we're leasing to them. And we're looking at consolidating. They've found that they won't have as much need for the space here at Washington as they initially anticipated, and their revenue stream is not coming in as quickly as they initially anticipated, as their enrollment is moving along a little slower than they'd hoped. So we're going to help them get established here in town by restructuring the lease agreement a little bit and not insisting on them renting unneeded space at Washington. So that's what you've got before you, is a revision of the lease agreements that had already been approved.
So I know the burning question of why Andy recused himself is he a dancer? That's not the case, right? Okay.
Lie Cinderella Baser, his middle name.
I believe that one of Andy's professional talents is helping people with visas and whatnot, and many of the students that will be attending the Ballet Academy are coming from overseas, and he has agreed to some part-time contract work helping them with that. And so there's not a direct conflict of interest in any way, but I think the better part of caution, Mr. Ferris decided that he would not participate in this discussion or this vote. You bet.
But we know who the dancer is on this board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very true.
You just wait.
I have a couple just quick questions.
Yes, ma'am.
The gym's going to be a shared space again with PUSD, for similar to what we did before, with pickleball and blood drives and
Right, so
yoga,
yeah,
I think.
PUSD will have, the Washington gym will be available to us virtually all the time. If Margot Fontaine Academy of Ballet, MFAB, we'll call it for short going forward, if MFAB has need for a space like that, they will get with us in advance and schedule that as would any other entity.
And are we expecting some of these dancers to be PUSD students? We are.
That is
are
the
we?
anticipation, yep.
Are we anticipating that for the beginning of this year? Possibly?
I'm seeing
Second
a
semester?
vigorous nod of the head from their
Okay,
executive
okay,
director behind
right.
you, yes.
Yay.
Yes, and so that's, in addition to it being a real positive thing for our community and a revenue producer generator for the school district, it will also, as we go forward, we anticipate add to our enrollment in a real positive way. And they've also got some, the programs and various things that Margot Fontaine Academy of MFAB has available could be available to our currently enrolled students as well. We've looked at several potential benefits to PUSD going forward in addition to those to MFAB. But again, tonight we're looking at just the lease agreement piece, an adjustment of that.
All right.
Good questions. Other questions?
Any question? Okay. I'll take a motion to consider approving a revised lease agreement with the Margot Fontaine Academy of Ballet and PUSD number 1 as presented.
I make a motion to approve the revised lease agreement.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, aye.
You have to vote.
Now it's a quorum. All right. All right. It's been moved and seconded and approved. 3-0. The next item is the temporary suspension of the district's restriction against the presence and consumption of alcohol on district grounds, specifically for Mile High Middle School on September 30th, 2023 for a special housewarming party event as requested by the Margot Fontaine Academy of Ballet.
Okay, great. So I'll take this one as well. Lindy made a great point earlier regarding the teacher housing, that there are certain things that are restricted on our school campuses. One of them is alcohol, one of them is tobacco. That's written in state statute and cannot be waived at any point. So in the homes that will be leasing to people, that will be part of the lease agreement, is that there won't be any tobacco possession or use, et cetera. Again, providing context for the actual agenda item that I'll get there really quick, I promise. Pets are not allowed, et cetera. One of the things that can be waived temporarily or intermittently, and what we'll ask, by the way, for the lease agreement, IGA, is for the board to waive the alcohol use and possession prohibition, we'll call it that, I guess we could call it that, for residents of the homes in the evening times within the homes. We'll get to that when the time comes. But at any rate, MFAB is looking at having a housewarming event as they kick off their first main school year with enrolled students and whatnot, and as part of that, they're looking at having alcoholic beverages, and so we're asking the board to temporarily waive the alcohol prohibition policy on Mile High Middle School's campus for the evening of September 30th, which is a Saturday, afternoon and evening, that day.
I'm assuming they're paying a nominal fee to have the housewarming party?
So that's part of, great question, it's part of their lease
Part-
agreement
okay,
with us,
got it.
is they're using the facilities, and so
That's what I thought.
you would probably have to
Bring
call
it
it more than a nominal fee. It's tens of thousands of dollars that will be coming to us over the course of the year, and this is one part of that is they're asking if they can use the facilities that day. Yes, they sure can, and we're asking you, are you willing to waive the alcohol prohibition? You probably know this comes to us from the city. It has in the past multiple times when there's a city event or party or whatnot that happens, and it's usually at Mile High because it's centrally located downtown. The board has, in my recollection, dozens of times voted to temporarily waive that if it was for the benefit of the community or an organization that was in some way benefiting PUSD. And MFAB certainly falls into that latter category for sure.
Any other discussion?
There will be people checking IDs and everything.
I do not believe that is the case.
No. I read that somewhere. I don't know where I read that.
It's certainly not part of what you're voting on this evening. It's up to them how they choose to do things. Obviously, there are state laws regarding restriction of alcohol to minors, and I'm confident that they'll be following applicable laws. Did you have a?
Sorry.
Yes.
I'm Tara. I'm the executive.
Tara, why don't you take the mic real quick for the few people that might be watching online? Thank you.
Sorry. The alcohol event, well, that makes it sound like it's just a drinking thing. The event at which alcohol will be served is an invitation-only event, and none of the individuals who will be invited to that will be underage. So, and I imagine that the management of Fontaine would also be keeping a very close eye on who is actually present and ensuring that there is no breach of those requirements.
Okay. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
So checking IDs, no, but doing things the right way, for sure.
Great. All right. Any further discussion? All right. No
I'll
further.
move then
Oh.
that we accept that. Oh, sorry.
Go for it. Yes. Let's make a motion, Linda. Go for
I
it.
made the motion that we accept this one-time thing.
Would you mind reading that? Is that
They
okay?
have to read it for the record. Do you have a spare
I
set
could
of
say, and you can say so moved, if that's okay. I'll consider a motion for taking action to temporarily suspend the district's restriction against the presence and consumption of alcohol on the district grounds, specifically for Mile High Middle School, on September 30th, 2023, for a special housewarming party event as requested by the Margot Fontaine Academy of Ballet.
So moved.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. I will turn it back over to President Freyer.
Okay, thank you. Well done. I appreciate it. Okay, our next item is a discussion item concerning proposed changes in Policy Services Advisory Volume 35, Number 2, Number 744 and 747 from July 2023.
Okay.
Tenny.
Thank you. First of all, we want to draw to your attention that the wording in the discussion item varies slightly from the information in your packet. What it was intended to say was number 744 through 746, actually, not and 747. So, and as you've looked at your packet, you've probably seen that those are the numbers that you're considering this evening. We'll actually be bringing 747 to you in August. So we got a little ahead of ourselves there, and I apologize for that. So as you know, anytime we're looking at potentially altering a board policy, we have 2 readings of that. It usually comes as a result of the Arizona School Boards Association creating new model policy or revised model policy around an issue. And that's the case here. Each of these 3 is regarding the adoption of curriculum. As you know, our policy in the past has stated that that we followed for both the social studies and initially for the science curriculum, said that there was no need for it to be a board approved policy. It could be an committee, an administratively approved committee, and that's what school districts throughout Arizona have done for decades. The Attorney General has recently ruled that that state statute specifies that if there's going to be curriculum or textbook adoption going forward, that we'll need to do that as part of a board-approved policy, and we want to make sure that we follow that going forward. So we've been following our policy in the past, but there was a disconnect between that and a state statute, the way that it's been recently interpreted, and we want to make sure that we adjust that going forward. So we're happy to have been advised on that there was a technical violation of open meeting policy. We're also advised at the same time, you may recall, that in no way affected the actual board adoption of the social studies curriculum, nor would it affect the board adoption of the science curriculum this evening. But going forward, we want to make sure that we do what we always do, which is to do our very best to follow all state statutes and policies. So we're coming to you this evening with the first reading of these 3 policies that specify that going forward, that all curriculum adoption committees are in fact board-approved curriculum adoption committees, and as such will be subject to open meeting laws. And the information you've got in your package, you've had for several days, is there for the public as well. They're quite lengthy policies. We don't plan to read them verbatim this evening. And as is typical with first readings, the idea is to get it in front of you, and you've got several weeks then to look over it, ask questions of us in advance or at the next meeting as well, as you consider new policy. Because
It makes sense. For the most part, it's just eliminating the word board.
yes,
And
essentially
that's
yes.
basically where all of our problems came from.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Use that one word, so.
So we have this in the packet now. If there's no questions or discussion on this tonight, I would recommend that we all take this home and review, and if you think of something as a result of reading or understanding the situation, that we get in touch with the administrative staff and let's discuss that before our next meeting, when we would vote to approve or edit, or because we can edit this to meet our needs.
Absolutely. Yep.
So this can be changed if there is something that you see that needs to be changed in it.
So this will be on the August 1st agenda then?
Correct. Yep, for our
That's
second
my
reading.
For a
request.
second reading.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, we want to get to this as soon as we possibly can. As you know, we've had recent legal advice regarding this. I think you've had a chance to ask questions then, but if there wasn't something that came to mind as you got the recent legal advice and you want to ask additional questions, as Mr. Freyer mentioned, we're here as resources for you, and we can certainly go back to our legal team and say, hey, a good question has come up regarding this that we want to make sure we've got clarity on.
Okay. Anything else on this item? Okay. We'll move on to community comments shared with the governing board. Anything from our board members?
No, it's only been a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, this isn't an open time for comments from the community. This is for board-initiated comments. But we can speak to anybody afterwards if you have comments you want to share.
Well, do you want me to bring it up? Or did I already do that last week?
About the volunteers?
Yeah.
You
How
talked-
you're going to...
Yeah, but you can talk about it again. Yeah, you mentioned it last week, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I am excited about this, getting our community volunteers, and Marty and I have been working together to activate it and encourage the teachers for some volunteers. And so they're going to talk it up at the new teacher, what do you call it, orientation, and then the opening of school for the teachers. I know I never wanted to volunteer in my classroom the first month of school. It's like you're getting to know your kids, you're setting up your reading groups, you're setting your routines. You don't want another job. So I'm going to be training our tutors and things. So I just had to say that again, that I'm looking forward to that, and us getting a whole bunch of teachers that want community volunteers in their classroom working on the Haggerty program and phonemic awareness for the kids that are really falling behind. We really need to target them. I know Clark's on board with that too.
I think it's absolutely wonderful that you're doing this and taking this on. I applaud you for doing that. But I don't want people to think we haven't been using volunteers in our classrooms for decades.
Yeah.
I mean, I have volunteers in my classroom every single day, and most of my colleagues did, working on phonics and math remediation and working with kids. So I don't want people to think we haven't been using them. We have volunteers have been a stable part of our district for decades, but this is wonderful. I applaud you for taking this on. That's great, but we
Thank
do
you.
we do
Yeah.
use volunteers.
And it did fall off during the COVID years.
It did, but
so
many
we
of
want
it-
to reactivate it, more of them. So that's good.
And both of your comments underscore something that we saw a little bit earlier this evening, the wealth of talent
Yes.
and experiences that we have in our community and how willing people are to come and share those with us. That is fantastic. That's something that we have in Prescott in a way that would be hard to find in almost any other community. So Jane, you're exactly right. We've drawn on that for years, and Linda, we really appreciate you helping us to do that in a specific way going forward.
Yeah. So it's exciting. I'm glad that everything's so positive and bridges are being built. So I'm really glad about that.
Excellent.
Any other comments? Okay. Our next meeting date's Tuesday, August 1st at 5 p.m. right here is our next regular study and voting session. And following that, September 12th will be our September study and voting session. And then the governing board will hold a retreat on Friday, September 29th in the boardroom, where we'll be working on transition for a new superintendent who's sitting to my right tonight. All staff returns July 31st. Convocation will be that day, and the first day of school, it's August 3rd.
It's coming.
Hey, it could be worse. Gil Chandler started today. Tomorrow. Their kids start tomorrow.
Awesome.
So, can you imagine that?
All right. If there's
115.
nothing else, thank you, and we are adjourned.